The phone rang just after sunset. Emily almost let it go to voicemail. Her apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that made thoughts louder. Boxes from her recent move were still stacked near the wall, unopened, like promises she was too tired to keep. She stood near the window, watching cars pass below, their lights blurring in the thin rain. She answered on the last ring. "Hey," Daniel said. His voice was calm, normal. Too normal. For a moment, Emily couldn't speak. She hadn't planned this call. It had just happened, like a crack opening without warning. "I'm not okay," she said quickly, before she could change her mind. The words surprised both of them. Daniel went silent, not because he didn't care, but because he understood the weight behind that sentence. Emily was never dramatic. At work, she was the one who fixed problems and stayed late without complaint. If she said she wasn't okay, it meant something real was breaking. "Do you want me to come over?" he asked. Emily closed her eyes. She didn't want to sound weak. She didn't want to explain everything. But she also didn't want to be alone anymore. "Yes," she said softly. Daniel grabbed his jacket and keys without another word. The rain had grown heavier by the time he reached her building. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time, heart beating faster than he expected. He told himself this was simple. A friend helping a friend. Nothing more. Emily opened the door before he knocked. Her eyes were tired, her hair loosely tied back, her face bare and honest. For a second, neither of them moved. "Come in," she said. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and cardboard. Daniel noticed how empty it looked, how little of Emily seemed to be there yet. He set his jacket down and waited, unsure of where to stand. They sat on opposite sides of the couch. A few inches of space felt much wider. Emily stared at her hands. "I thought once I moved, things would feel better," she said. "New place. New start." Daniel nodded. He didn't interrupt. "But everything followed me," she continued. "The breakup. The questions. That feeling that I failed at something important." Her voice stayed steady, but Daniel could hear the strain under it. He leaned forward slightly, giving her his full attention. "I keep telling people I'm fine," she said. "And they believe me. I almost believe it too. Until nights like this." Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. He had seen Emily smile through hard days, laugh in meetings, encourage others. He had never seen this side of her. "You don't have to be fine right now," he said. That was when she looked up. Not suddenly. Slowly. Like she was checking if it was safe. For the first time that evening, her eyes filled with tears. She didn't cry, but the tears stayed there, bright and honest. "I hate needing help," she said. "I know," Daniel replied. "But you're allowed to." The room grew quiet again, but it felt different now. Less heavy. Emily leaned back into the couch, her shoulders dropping for the first time all day. They talked for a while after that. Not about everything. Just enough. She told him about the end of her relationship, how it had faded instead of breaking. How that somehow hurt more. She spoke about waking up alone in a new city and wondering if she had made a mistake leaving her old life behind. Daniel listened. He didn't rush her. He didn't offer easy answers. He stayed. Time moved faster than either of them noticed. When Daniel finally stood to leave, the rain had stopped. Emily walked him to the door. "Thank you," she said. "For coming." "Anytime," he answered, and meant it more than he expected. As he stepped into the hallway, Daniel felt unsettled. Not worried. Changed. Inside the apartment, Emily closed the door and leaned against it. The silence returned, but it no longer felt empty. It felt open. Neither of them knew it yet, but something had already shifted. A line had been crossed, quietly and without permission. And nothing would feel quite the same again. Emily didn't cry when Daniel came over the next day. That surprised her. She had expected herself to break down, to fall apart, to beg for comfort, but she didn't. Instead, she felt calm. Strange, almost alien. They sat on the couch again, but this time closer. Not touching, not intentionally, just close enough that their knees almost brushed. Rain tapped lightly against the window, a soft rhythm that made the room feel safe. "I thought I could handle it alone," Emily said, staring at the carpet. Her voice was quiet but steady. "The breakup. The move. Everything. I thought I could just deal with it." Daniel nodded, leaning back, his hands resting loosely on his knees. "You've been handling a lot," he said. "It's okay to let someone in." She looked at him, unsure. Not used to this. No one had ever offered this without expecting something back. He wasn't trying to fix her. He wasn't judging. He was just present. They started small. First, coffee. Daniel brought hers in a travel mug, still warm from his favorite cafe. They sat together in Emily's tiny kitchen, steam rising between them, sharing quiet conversation. Small stories about coworkers, about the city, about life. Nothing heavy, nothing rushed. But in those small moments, Emily began to notice him differently. Not just Daniel, the reliable friend, the steady coworker, the guy who helped her move boxes last month. She noticed the warmth in his eyes when she laughed, the gentle patience in his voice when she hesitated. The days turned into a routine. Daniel would check in with a text in the morning. Emily started looking forward to it. Lunches became walks in the park. Walks became late-night calls when she couldn't sleep. Each moment built quietly, a bridge she hadn't realized she was ready to cross. One evening, they walked along the river. Leaves floated in clusters on the water, orange and red under the street lamps. Emily laughed at something Daniel said, a laugh that startled her because it felt so free. He laughed too, softly, the kind of laugh that makes you feel like the world is smaller, more manageable. "I don't know how I ended up here," she admitted suddenly, stopping mid-step. "I didn't think anyone could make me feel lighter after all this." Daniel looked at her, catching her eyes in the streetlight. "Sometimes the person you least expect is the one who can help you breathe again." Emily smiled, but it was small, tentative. She didn't say anything else, and they kept walking. Back at her apartment, they lingered at the door. Neither of them moved to leave. Something hung in the air, unspoken but obvious. Days passed. Emily noticed little things about him. The way he remembered the smallest details she mentioned. The way he offered support without being asked. The way his presence could calm the chaos she felt inside. She began to realize that support didn't have to be just comfort, it could be something more. And Daniel? He noticed too. Every time she looked at him, the quick smile that flickered in her eyes, he felt something stirring that he couldn't name. He had always cared for her, but now it was more than care. He felt protective, yes, but also drawn in a way that was unexpected. They spent more evenings together. Sometimes in silence, sometimes talking about their dreams, their fears, their regrets. Emily shared pieces of herself she hadn't told anyone in years. Daniel listened, never pushing, never judging. And in those moments, Emily felt a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in a long time. But there was tension too, subtle and almost invisible. Neither of them spoke of it, but both felt it. The closeness was changing things. Daniel wondered if helping her had made him fall for her. Emily wondered if the comfort she felt was gratitude, or something deeper. One night, as they said goodnight, Emily paused at the door. I like having you around," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel smiled, heart thumping. "I like being around you too," he replied. Neither of them knew what that meant yet. But they both knew one thing, support had led them to this moment, and neither of them could ignore it anymore. That night, Emily lay in bed thinking about Daniel. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel the emptiness pressing in. She felt a spark, a quiet, fragile, but undeniable spark. And Daniel, as he walked home through the drizzle, felt the same thing. Something unexpected had begun. Something neither of them had planned. Support had turned into connection. And connection had the power to change everything. The November evening was cold, sharper than Emily expected. The kind of chill that seeps through jackets and settles in your chest. Daniel had driven her home from dinner, a quiet routine they had fallen into over the past weeks. The car heater hummed, soft and steady, a contrast to the rush of thoughts in Emily's mind. She stared out the window at the passing streetlights, their reflections flickering in the wet asphalt. Her hands rested in her lap, fidgeting with the edge of her scarf. Daniel glanced at her, noticing the tension she tried to hide. "I don't know who I am without pain," she said suddenly, her voice breaking the quiet. Daniel turned to her, attentive. "You're still you," he said simply. "Even without it." Emily's eyes met his. For the first time, she wasn't thinking about what she had lost or the mistakes she had made. She was thinking about the person sitting beside her, the one who had stayed when she needed support the most. The car felt smaller suddenly. The distance between them seemed to vanish. They didn't speak for a moment, but the silence was not empty. It carried a weight they both recognized but neither wanted to name. Daniel's hand brushed against hers, accidental but electric. Emily didn't pull away. Instead, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, safe, seen, and a little vulnerable in the best way. They talked about ordinary things at first, work, the cold weather, dinner, but there was a tension beneath every word, a quiet undercurrent neither could ignore. Daniel wanted to ask, wanted to say what he was feeling, but he held back, respecting the fragile space between them. Emily, for her part, struggled with her own thoughts. She was afraid to confuse gratitude with love, afraid to mistake support for desire. Yet when she looked at him, she couldn't deny the warmth spreading in her chest. It was unfamiliar, thrilling, and terrifying all at once. The drive ended too soon. They reached her apartment, but neither moved immediately. Emily opened the car door and stepped out into the cold. The air stung her cheeks. Daniel followed, walking her to the front door. "Thanks," she said softly. "For tonight, for everything." Daniel smiled, but his heart thumped in a way he hadn't expected. "Always," he said. Inside, Emily leaned against the door, trying to calm herself. Her thoughts raced. She had felt the spark. She had noticed it, the way her heart had skipped when his hand brushed hers, the way she had leaned in closer without realizing it. Daniel walked to his car, feeling the same rush. He had tried to keep their connection simple, just friendship, just support. But tonight, something had changed. The line had blurred, subtly but undeniably. He couldn't ignore it anymore. The next day at work was strange. Both of them avoided direct conversation, but every glance, every small gesture carried the weight of what had happened the night before. Emily found herself remembering his touch, the warmth of his voice, the way he had looked at her. Daniel replayed the same moments, questioning if he had crossed a line, or finally found the one he had been looking for. By midweek, the tension became almost unbearable. Emily caught herself staring at him in meetings, noticing details she hadn't before, the curve of his smile, the thoughtful tilt of his head, the patience in his tone. Daniel, in turn, found himself lingering near her desk, waiting for excuses to talk, to laugh together, to share the quiet moments that had begun to mean so much. Neither spoke about it, but both felt it. Support had shifted into something more. Something neither had expected. Something that scared them because it was real, but excited them because it felt right. That Friday, Daniel left the office later than usual. Emily was still packing her things, moving slower than normal. He walked past her desk and paused. Their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement of everything that had changed. I'm glad you're here," Daniel said quietly, almost under his breath. Emily smiled, a little shy, a little nervous. "Me too," she whispered back. It was not a confession, not yet. But it was an admission. A recognition that the connection they had built in quiet moments had grown into something neither could ignore. That night, Emily lay awake, thinking about the car ride, the warmth, the brush of hands. Daniel, miles away, felt the same pull. They were both caught in the in-between, fear and hope, support and desire, friendship and something more. Neither knew what would happen next, but both sensed that the next step could change everything. The support they had relied on had become a spark, a tension neither could deny, and neither knew if they were ready for the fire it could ignite. And as the city slept under a soft drizzle, both of them wondered, was it love, or just the pull of needing each other? Either way, nothing would ever feel the same again. Winter arrived quietly, dusting the city with snow and softening the edges of Emily's apartment building. The streets were slick, and the world outside felt slower, calmer, almost like it was holding its breath. Emily stood at her front door, coat buttoned up, gloves on, staring at the sidewalk. She had made a decision. She needed clarity, and she needed Daniel. She didn't call first. She wanted the moment to feel real, not planned. Her heart raced as she knocked on his door, each tap louder than the last. When Daniel opened it, she almost stumbled over her words. His surprise softened into a warm smile, and something in her chest eased. "Hey," he said, stepping aside. "I wasn't expecting you." "I needed time," Emily said. "Not away from you. Just to understand myself." He nodded, silent, giving her space to speak. His calm presence always grounded her, but today it also made the air between them electric. "I don't need saving," she continued. "I needed support. And I had it. From you. But what I realized is that I want more than support. I want you." Daniel's chest tightened. He had waited for her to say this, feared it, hoped for it all at once. He opened the door wider, inviting her in, but didn't rush. The room was quiet, warm, the snow outside creating a soft glow through the windows. Emily walked in slowly, shedding her coat and gloves. She felt the tension of weak seas from her shoulders. The apartment smelled faintly of vanilla candles and winter air. Daniel gestured toward the couch, and she sat, hesitating only a moment before looking up at him. "I've been scared," she admitted, voice soft. "Scared I'd confuse gratitude with something else. Scared I'd lose you if I let myself feel," she trailed off, eyes searching his. Daniel knelt in front of her, hands resting lightly on his knees. "Emily," he said. "You don't have to be afraid of feeling. Not with me. I'm here, not because you're broken, but because I want to be. Always." Her breath caught. That simple statement carried more weight than any grand gesture could. It was honesty, patience, and care all rolled into one. She realized then that love didn't have to roar to exist. Sometimes it arrived quietly, softly, in moments like this. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. About fears and dreams, the past and hopes for the future. Emily laughed more than she had in months, and Daniel noticed, letting himself relax too. The bond they had built on support, empathy, and understanding had blossomed into something tender and undeniable. Night fell, and snow continued to fall outside, coating the streets in silence. Emily stood to leave, and Daniel followed her to the door. Their hands brushed, lingered, a gentle acknowledgement of what had shifted. "I don't need saving," Emily said again, smiling faintly. "I just want you." Daniel felt a warmth spread through him, a quiet certainty. "Then you have me," he replied, simply, truthfully. They didn't rush into labels or promises of forever. There was no dramatic declaration, no sudden confession. Just a mutual understanding, steady and patient, that they had crossed a line and found something rare. Something real. The weeks that followed were filled with small moments that mattered, shared coffee in the mornings, quiet walks in the snow, long conversations that stretched into the night. Their connection deepened naturally, without pressure, without expectation. Emily felt stronger, not because she had needed him to fix her, but because he chose to be there, consistently, gently, honestly. Daniel felt the same. He realized that support had led to intimacy, intimacy to trust, and trust to love. A love that was grounded in patience and care, not desperation or drama. One evening, as they sat together by the window watching snowflakes drift past, Emily rested her head lightly on Daniel's shoulder. "I never expected this," she whispered. "Neither did I," he admitted, his arm around her, holding her close. Yet it felt right. Somehow, the support that had begun in her weakest moments had grown into the strongest bond they had ever known. And in that quiet, snowy night, they both understood, love doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes softly, unexpectedly, and changes everything without warning. Emily had needed support. None of them expected what it would become. But in the end, it became everything.